Sensitivity is super underrated. It's also very over-controlled and really misunderstood. And to be honest, I feel like as humans, we are constantly running around trying to solve problems by over intellectualizing things, by hustling until we're exhausted. And it's like we keep chasing, trying to find solutions until we realize all we really wanted was to feel happy, to feel anything. So, why are we constantly chasing? Why are we constantly trying to intellectualize, trying to hustle? Because we're kind of trying to outrun what would ultimately help us, and that would be listening to our bodies, our sensitivity, and our feelings. It's not something where I'm just babying you into feeling better about yourself. It is something that actually solves problems. Okay, let's get into it. So first of all, let me just say, the reason why I think sensitivity will solve problems is because, first of all, I've seen it. Second of all, it's the thing that most people are trying to outrun. So by default, it's the thing that they have to face. Does that make sense? It's usually the thing that people are trying to ignore or outrun. Like when you think about it, what does most of humanity try to do? It tries to over-intellectualize things, tries to stuff down sensitivities and reactions. They try to manipulate it in a way that they intellectually want it to look like. And then they try to hustle hard. They try to go at it fast. They try to throw a lot of action towards something. And most of the time, we see a lot of systemic issues happen because we're all trying to over manipulate and we're trying to ignore our feelings. We're trying to ignore the core issues. We act like the world operates as if everyone is just not intellectual enough and we just need to get smarter. Imagine if our movies were like that. Imagine if the movie was, oh, that person has a really good sense of self. They are really sweet. They have a lot of sensitivity and compassion, and they're really, they have a lot of good personal development already. They're just dumb. Imagine our TV shows and movies and the plots where just the person was like, wow, you have a good handle on your emotions and your sensitivity and your personal development. All you have to do is be smart. That is what that makes a terrible movie, because you don't see a person's internal arc, and that's what we're looking for, right? And we don't get to see someone who actually personally grows. We don't get to see their values. We don't get to see them overcome things or create bigger values, or to get out of their heads, get out of their minds, get out of their egos, and instead come back to their soul and their purpose and their true nature. That is what we look for when we look at movies. But imagine we had a movie that was just like, oh, that person believes in themselves and they're really sweet and they have a really healthy self-esteem. They're just stupid. Imagine the movie was, I'm proud of you, son. You're not dumb anymore. And that was the moral of the story. That is not what we want to watch. And in real life, that's what we think the plot is. It's not. The plot is always, you are trying to overcome yourself, your personal development, and actually tune into your sensitivity and your sense of self. And I feel like we always forget that part. And I think being a person in the world in general, and being a person who has worked for several workplaces that run around in circles and efficiently, I can, and I'm sure a lot of people can tell you, the problem is people are always trying to over-intellectualize, over-manipulate, over-control, and chase their tails, and they're trying to go in circles going, why didn't this work? Why didn't this work? I intellectualized it so much. Why didn't it work? I controlled it so much. Why didn't it work? I played the game. I was shifty enough. Why didn't it work? And then Honestly, you see that the solution to most problems over and over again is what? You could sum it up as the same thing as most movies, right? Most of the time, we just have to overcome ourselves personally. Most of the time, we have to look at our blocks. Most of the time, we have to be sensitive to the feelings that we do have, to other people's feelings. Like, most of the time, we need to actually face what we are trying to stuff down. And I think that it is actually not logical to pretend that sensitivity and feelings are not a factor. As a human, you experience life by feeling. You have no experience of life except for intellectual if you ignore your feelings. And you see so many people, most people achieve. They get good social standings. They have lots of money. And they're still unhappy and empty inside. Why is that? Because all of their efforts, all of what they're trying to do, the goal was not just to have the social standing or to have the money. It is to have a feeling that results from the money, the social standing, the success. The goal was always to feel. Isn't that interesting? And we're always pretending that it's not. We're always pretending that the goal was, I'm just going to be the best. You want to be the best because you want to feel accepted, because you want to feel love, because you don't want to feel abandoned or sad or depressed or ignored or neglected. Your goal was always to feel. We are over elevating the other parts of life, and we always forget about the sensitivities, the feelings, and how that brings it back to your actual goals. And it's hilarious because by default, because you keep ignoring sensitivity, because the world keeps ignoring it, it ends up being the final solution. What happens when you're in an argument? To actually solve the argument, you have to be basically empathic to both sides. You have to be fair enough to make a good decision. Like, you need to get past the blocks and understand, oh, I have to treat the other person well. What happens when you have a government that over controls and does not think of everyone equally? People rebel. People will have feelings. There will be wars. People will go hungry. People will get depressed. People will retaliate. People will have dysregulation. People will commit crimes. There are consequences to not paying attention to sensitivity. So it is illogical. It is not logical to pretend that you don't have sensitivity. It has to be factored in to your normal life, normal processing, and ways that we have to operate systemically. If it's not, we get more problems. But for some reason, that doesn't seem logical to people. For some reason, we think that we are just brains on non-sentient bodies. What do you think you're doing? What do you think your body is doing? Your body is the reason you're experiencing life at all. So anyway, I am in a heightened sort of like high energy mode because I just kind of feel like it's such an obvious that we are skirting around and we're trying to do all these other systems and methods and all these other things to do, when in reality it's just make sure you factor in that part. Yes, you are intellectual. Humans are intellectual. We are here to be smart and to create and to understand. Yes, we are doers. We have to do things to create things. But the whole goal, the whole reason why you're doing anything at all is so you can experience, you can feel. And if your body is telling you things like, hey, this feeling wasn't good. Like, if your body is reflecting something from your environment or whatever is going on, and it's saying it doesn't like it, That's just a direct piece of information. Anyway, so I'm just kind of randomly talking today, but I feel like it's important to say all this because as sensitive people, as someone who is highly sensitive, really empathic, maybe also identifies as neurodivergent, a lot of us tend to feel like we don't have a place in the world, or we're constantly going to get used, or we're constantly going to be looked down upon. And it's because our value is underrated. But when you think about it, I think it's hilarious because recently I was kind of closing out my thoughts on the narcissist empath sort of dynamic. And I think it's interesting because you can think about it that way, or anyone who is like, if they're not a narcissist, if they really emphasize like control, like these people, and also how they look to other people and like their social standing and to their image. These types of people are obsessed with people who are sensitive. They're obsessed with empaths. They're kind of like, it's almost like you are obsessed with like a foreign creature that you don't understand, that you don't feel in yourself, but you're like, you're going to give me a lot of information. You're also going to give me praise. You're going to give me the feelings that I want because you are a feeling sensitive person. Like you're going to, I think that a lot of those types of people are attracted to sensitive people because they are attracted to what they lack or what they are afraid to have in their lives. And like, I think that it's interesting because when I see it, like, I think that some of the most controlling people that I've experienced in my life have been attracted to me in some way, whether that is actually romantic or just out of curiosity. And they kind of err on the side of obsession because it's like, I don't understand that. I don't understand that. And I need to use you as the vessel for me to understand how to feel. And I just kind of, not to share too much, but I think, especially in a lot of my workplaces that I've had in the past couple of years, I felt like a lot of them randomly focused on me. Like it was, and I think that when you are sensitive and you don't want to heavily mask, like I identify as autistic and ADHD, and it's harder for me to socially mask because I'm really stimulated. And kind of sidebar, but it does feel like when you are really stimulated, that is your most immediate sort of conscious thing that's around you. Like what is the most in front of you and most important is what is giving you stimulation, I guess. And then after that, if you can socially mask, then you can. And some of us can, some of us have a harder time doing it. Some of us get so exhausted, me, and burnt out from trying to mask that we want to remove it anyway. But anyway, I feel like I've been at several workplaces now for the past couple of years where they may have noticed that I was the sensitive one and I didn't want to mask really well. And it might have been a problem. And if you are also sensitive in some way, you probably relate to this. You get you get like hyper focused on because people need to control you that much. They are afraid of your lack of mask, and they're afraid that you are reflecting what is actually happening in the environment. They're afraid that you will reflect honestly what is happening in an environment. And so they try to over control you, and they like micromanage you, and and the thing is for me, I am someone who admittedly does get stimulated and does get burnt out a lot, but I always try to do my work and I always try to communicate. But there is usually a hyper focus on me because I am not super like excellent at social masking. And so I just think, obviously, I feel like I'm giving some sass today because I'm a little bit, like I just want to feel my feelings about this. But I feel like I think it's hilarious when you are just honest about something that's going on and the people around you are scrambling to try to chase it, fix it, and not face it. And the thing is, like, I've been in several workplaces where there's usually tons of inefficiency, there's a lack of structure, there is usually, like, not a straightforward solution to problems. There is just over intellectualizing or over fixing or over, I don't know, attention to trying to make it socially look good. So much of the work that a lot of workplaces are doing is saving face and trying to be socially acceptable. And then some of it is actual work. And I think like this is all coming out right now because I'm also just transitioning into like allowing myself to live a more sensitive life and also considering what does that mean in my career, right? And so right now I've just kind of realized like it is so just practically it's inefficient to have to ignore the sensitive realities of what you're doing. And that even shows up in that shows up in the government. That shows up in every system that we're in. It's our workplaces. It's obviously our family systems. It's our relationships. Every time we interact with other humans and we downplay the necessary attention to sensitivity, we're like, why isn't it working? Like why do I have to keep chasing it? Why am I not happy yet? Why don't I like and you keep going around in circles and then you realize I forgot about the real goal. I forgot about the human experience of feeling. So I don't know if any of this makes sense, but I thought I'd share that because it is so important to realize that if you yourself are a sensitive person, and if you're experiencing a lot of frustration in your life just because you have spoken honestly on what you have felt, it's important to realize in general, you're not really the problem. You may be contributing to a lot of conflict, but if you're honest and if you're giving an honest reflection of what's happening to you, it's just a mirror, it's just a reflection. And I think as sensitive people, it's important that we try to recognize where our limits are with these systems that do downplay us. So lately, I have been finally aligning my body and getting healthier. And the way that I got there was admitting what my suppressed feelings were. So being honest with myself and also honest with what it was I really wanted, right? So the goal, which is what do I actually want to feel after I've manifested everything? What do I want to feel, right? And so I have been looking into how I can feel more honest about that and what that really looks like to me. And then with that, I've kind of realized that like I have chosen a lifestyle that does not fit my sensitive body. Like as I said, I am neurodivergent. I also have a really sort of common comorbidity to neurodivergence, which is I have hypermobile EDS. So my joints are lax and I have a harder time grounding and aligning my body. But the careers and the lifestyle I have chosen were ones where I was constantly on my feet in production, ones where I was constantly like sitting at a computer or commuting. So things where my body wasn't going to feel healthy being stuck in a position or trying to hold my body up for so long. I've also chosen like a career in some things, like I would say right now I'm in marketing. So I've chosen situations where a part of it does require some social masking, or at least in business, there is a lot of understood, scripted, but not, understood rules for how you're supposed to act. And so that wasn't, that also created the situations where I am heavily kind of like zeroed in on because I'm not social masking enough. And I think that it's important to realize, like, because for me, I have been like, God, eventually though, I want to create. Eventually I want to write. Eventually I want to sing. Eventually I want to actually use my sensitive body and do the things that I've always wanted to do, which were rooted in my sensitive nature, right? I'm like, I want to write, I want to sing, I want to speak, I want to help people, like, I want to guide people. All of these things are very in line with what would feel the best to my body. But throughout my career, I was like, I can't make money right away if I want to do any of those things. I have to learn how to do what everybody else does to make money. And I have had a lot of health issues as a result. I got really dysregulated. I got gut issues. I'm to the point where I'm probably, my immune system is probably so imbalanced at the moment that I'm kind of erring on the side of autoimmune issues. Like my body, I am just now relearning how to do a squat properly and how to feel the right muscles when I do a push-up because my body has been so misaligned. Like, I have not lived a life that was in alignment with my body's needs. And at least, like, for a while, obviously, but at least in the past, like, over a decade where I have been working, I have not chosen workplaces or positions or roles or tasks that are in line with my sensitive body's needs. And it is difficult when you realize that as a sensitive person, because it's also like, are there even enough jobs in the world where are there even jobs that exist that fit my sensitive body's needs? And does the world care enough to want to pay me to do those things? Like, I know, like, right now, that is actually what I'm thinking, but I will say it does exist, and it exists in less accessible ways, unfortunately, but I think that they are getting more common. So for example, like, a lot of the things I wanted to do were like kind of classic to typical film and TV and the entertainment industry. Like, I would love to be an actor or be a singer or be a creative and be the artist in the industry. Though it's notoriously really competitive to, achieve that in the entertainment industry. So we have social media, which is also pretty competitive, and it depends on being accepted. And then, like, recently I've thought about, like, honestly, like, going for it and being a life coach, a trauma coach, even dipping into thinking like maybe I should be a therapist, and like desperately wanting to be like, I want to be in my sensitivity and I really want that to be how I make money and what I'm using my energy for the most. I want to be in such a low masking day-to-day job and lifestyle. And the best way I could think about it is, what if I was like a life coach? What if I was like a therapist? What if I was an artist? What if my job was to always talk about feelings? Also, YouTube channel. This YouTube channel, literally, I'm creating like what if my YouTube channel was called Feeling My Feelings and that was my brand? What if feelings was my brand? And that's kind of what I did without really realizing it. But anyway, I know I got some intense energy today, but I think that it's important to understand that if you have a sensitive body, it's going to have some wear and tear for as long as you don't let it live in alignment with what it needs. And I think lately I've been really connecting back to ultimately what my body needs. And before, I think that I kept going around in circles going like what most people do, right? Like, I kept being like, I learned a lot. Why does my body not feel good and why does my life not feel good? Like, I did a lot. I took so much action. Like, I hustled a lot. I worked hard. Why do I not feel peaceful or settled or balanced? Like, I have been you know, kind of sitting and realizing like the places that I have worked at, the people that I am around, they are not what my body needs, but they are what I was conditioned to believe I needed. And so, like, the hardest part about this is realizing that a lot of people still might not agree, or they might not see it as important. Like, some of the people who do see it as important might kind of look at you and go, "Oh, that's so nice. That's good." Like, it might be condescending and demeaning when you're like, "I'm doing stuff that might be good for my body." But you realize that in general, those people need that too, you know? You see some of the most successful, rich people, and the joke is like there's so many like rich, like successful people who like desperately need to pay for like coaches, like therapy, sound baths, wellness experiences. And it's kind of like, yeah, because in order to get where they got, they had to sacrifice a lot of their wellness. And now they're like, I have to put so much money into my wellness. Yeah. So even there, like you can prove it didn't matter how successful I got. I needed additional help to still tune into my body and its sensitivities and what it actually needed, you know? So anyway, I was just thinking about how like it's kind of really come full circle for me since I started this podcast about what is important and why is it important to be sensitive and to have feelings. And honestly, it's just it ends up being the final thing that you need to do. It ends up by default being super important because we usually ignore it. But I will say it's important for you to have your mind, your intellectual pursuits. It's important for you to actually do stuff. And it's important for you to be emotional and to process things honestly and be in your body. You need all of those things. It's just the sensitive part is usually the underrated one. It's usually the one, Lynn, you don't need that. It's usually the one that everyone's like, no, it's not important. No, I'm just going to do stuff. I'm going to learn stuff. I'm going to be smart. And it's really just like, isn't it hilarious? Isn't it hilarious? You do everything else. And then you're like, I'm not happy. Why didn't this work? I don't get it. Oh, I was supposed to feel. And I will say that might be the most efficient way to, like, when you think about it, that might be the most efficient way to get what you want. So I was also kind of sidebar, like I keep having these last thoughts about law of attraction and manifestation lately. And I was watching one of Joe Dispenza's like million videos with the School of Greatness. And he was talking about how, and I think in a lot of the videos, he talks about how to really manifest something, the actual trick is you have to feel it first. You can visualize it, you can do the affirmations, but your body has to believe it too. And I think that's so interesting because I agree with him. Like, I agree that like, no matter what you're doing in your mind and what you think in your mind works, if it's not cohesive with what's going on in your body and how you feel, your body will still be looking for something else. If your body still feels uncomfortable, you're still going to feel uncomfortable. Like if you do not connect mentally with what is going on in your feelings, you're still going to be unhappy. Like you're still going to be blocked. Like there's still going to be a reason why, you're not going to be able to get what you want. Like honestly, you also see people who intellectually understand they have a lot of options. They have the ability to get what they want. Because they don't feel it, they may not go for it. They may be blocked because they have a different definition, because they feel differently. It won't manifest the way that they want to intellectually. And I think also, sidebar, it's hilarious whenever I see Joe Dispenza being like, guys, I've discovered the most important key. Like, so also kind of intellectualizing it. And he's like, guys, the most important thing that I've discovered in all of my thing, like he like super like makes it sound like I had this giant scientific discovery. And he's like, you have to feel, like as if it's this super anomaly thing. Like, I discovered that you have to feel like no shit. And so again, I think it's hilarious how like, I don't know why. I'm in a mood. Okay, I'm in a mood. But like I just think it's hilarious how much we're just like, at the end of the day, the solution was always that embodied feeling, sensitive space. And I think if we let ourselves actually be there, if we stop shaming it, and if we stop like doing all these other things to escape facing that part of us, we might have a straight shot to what we want. It would be more efficient. It would give us less stress, less physical stress. It would make our bodies feel the way that we wanted to in the first place. And we didn't have to do so many workarounds. When you feel something doesn't feel right, figure out how to make it feel better. I think that's simple enough. Okay, well, in my next videos, I do want to talk about a little bit more about how sensitivity is a solution to most things and how to cope with being sensitive. But until next time, peace and love. Bye-bye. They're the problem. They're the problem, not me. I have pointed out the problems. They dislike that I did that. It's not me. I'm not the problem. I'm not the problem.